Hi guys, welcome back to our Maine Homestead, and thank you for tuning in to another Sourdough 101 series video. Today we're going to be talking about dehydrating your sourdough starter. Now, a couple of reasons why you would want to dehydrate your sourdough starter is because it is very shelf stable. It'll keep for a very long time, so if you go on a break from your baking spree, or you just aren't going to be baking for whatever reason, you can dehydrate it, stick it on the shelf, and then you don't have to continue feeding it, and it's not going to dry out in your fridge. So that's one good reason. Another good reason is that it saves very nicely so that you can send it to friends or family or anybody that's wanting to experiment with sourdough. So it's a nice little gift that you can give to others. And last but not least, it activates a lot faster than starting a sourdough starter from scratch. So that comes in handy for sure. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do today is actually feed our sourdough starter. So this is an active starter. It's ready to be fed for today, so I'm going to go ahead and feed it. Then in the morning, when it's nice and active and at its peak, we will take on the next step of this dehydration process. Now, I do not have a dehydrator, so I'm going to show you how to do it without a dehydrator. Like I said, we're going to start out by feeding it first. So I've got about 2 ounces of active sourdough starter in my pint jar. I'm going to put about 2 ounces of flour in there, and I'm just measuring using the little marks on the side of the pint jar. I am not measuring this with a scale or a measuring cup or anything like that. So once this gets to 4 ounces, I am going to use my distilled water. I like using distilled water with my sourdough starters because it does a lot better than my well water. So those are the 2 types of water that I've used in the past. Distilled water has never failed me. Well water works about 25% of the time. So I added just enough water to get the right consistency that I'm looking for, which, if you've seen any of my other videos, which you can access right here, I'll put a link to all of the other Sourdough 101 videos that I've made so far. We're just looking for a thick pancake batter consistency. So I'm going to scrape down the sides here. Put a lid on top, not airtight. Let it sit on my counter overnight, and in the morning we'll meet back here and show you the next steps of the dehydration process. Good morning, everybody. So we've got a nice, happy, active starter at its peak. It is starting to deflate just a bit, so this is the perfect time to spread it out and get the dehydration process started. So like I said, I'm not using a dehydrator. You can obviously use one of those if you have them at your disposal. You can also put this on a baking sheet and actually just put it on a very, very low temp in the oven. I don't know the numbers for that. I wouldn't advise doing that, only because I don't know the specifics. But what I'm gonna do is basically like my crock pot method is what I feel like it is, because it's just to sit it and forget it. So I'm gonna spread all of this active starter out on some parchment paper, and I'm gonna put it near our wood stove, which is kind of a dry, warm place, and it's just going to dehydrate over the next several days. I will take you along each day and just show you its progress, but really this is like the easiest and simplest way to dehydrate your sourdough starter. So let's go ahead and spread it out. Okay, first things first, we're just going to tear off a piece of parchment paper, a pretty good sized piece, one that's big enough to sit on a cookie sheet or baking tray. I'm just going to do that so it doesn't fold up on me. Then roll up our sleeves. We're just going to dump out all of this sourdough starter. And I'm using this entire jar, so I'm going to just scrape all the sides down, get as much sourdough starter out as I can. And then we're just going to spread it out into a thin layer on our parchment paper. So the thinner you have your layer, the faster it's going to dry out and dehydrate. So I'm gonna spread it out pretty thin here. Alright, that should be good enough. Next, I'm just going to slide a little pan underneath it just so that it's more manageable. And then just like this, I'm going to go set it near the wood stove so that over the next few days it can dry out from the heat and dryness that is the environment by the wood stove. Alright, so Eddie's got his seed starting supplies here, and then I've got my sourdough starter sitting here, and I will just check on it over the next few days and show you guys the progress. So today is day 3, and as you can see, we are pretty dry all around. It's breaking up very nicely. So all I'm going to do now is just throw it into a blender, blend it up until it's like a crumbly, powdery consistency. Okay, so I just got done blending it up. It's very just powdery, kind of fine, dusty, a little bit chunky, so some crumbles in there, but this is just gonna go into a jar and sit up on my shelf. And like I said, it's a very shelf-stable product, so you can just use a little bit of it whenever you need a sourdough starter to be activated fairly quickly. So the big benefit, again, of using a dehydrated sourdough starter is that it is active. It's already got all that good yeast and everything to make it grow, so it actually will activate and become useful for bread making, any sort of baking, anything like that, a lot faster than starting a starter from scratch. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment in the comment section below if you have any questions. Be on the lookout for the next video, which will be all about rehydrating your sourdough starter. Talk to you guys next time.